Well there, my friends, welcome to the inaugural episode of Warrior Week, the podcast. Now, in today's show, I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey, and that journey itself is simply to set us up for your full-time guide. I will simply be the co-host as we move forward into the future of this particular podcast as a weekly experience for you. Your co-host is with me, Mr. Sam Falsafi, lead trainer of Warrior Week, and also my partner in crime at the red hot core of Wake Up Warrior with a handful of 4 or 5 other of us that lead thousands of men around the world into the have-it-all lifestyle. So we're going to get to know today Coach Sam Falsafi as your regular lead host, and we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of this show, why this show exists, where we're going to take this show this year, how the show can ultimately support you as a man listening to it, and for those few brave women who listen to this and wish that their husbands were playing into this, their boyfriend was playing this, or shit, there was a dating service for Warrior where you could find a man that we have trained here, which, Coach Sam, this could be an alternate business for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could just have the Warrior dating services. How you feel about this?
That's a new podcast.
A new podcast. Findyourman.com. Which is, brought to you by Wake Up Warrior. Okay. So today's show is going to be a little bit different because, again, I'm here, number one. I'm going to be here every couple of weeks. There's going to be some guests that are going to come in every couple of weeks with Coach Sam. And Coach Sam will spend sometimes just with himself with you, guiding you here audibly and visually and through text through the experience of what we call Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. Now, we're going to start off with one simple idea, and that is, why does Warrior Week even exist? And this starts us, Coach Sam, into a bit of your entrance into the entire Warrior Week experience, because what many people may not know is that although you're the current lead trainer and your brand's all over the place and your experience with me is all over the place, and you sit at the core of this and you've led thousands of men with me through this process, you actually began your journey with Warrior Week, back when I was doing all the interviews for Warrior Week, and you were the only man in history to ever actually sit down with me, one-on-one, face-to-face, on the old blue couches at the old Warrior HQ. So we're going to start our story there, Sam, and we're going to have a little discussion here to introduce everyone to you on, let's go back to that Warrior Week experience. Let's go back to you applying for Warrior Week and coming in and having a seat. Talk to me about what was going on in your world before you decided to come to Warrior Week, and why you were even searching something out at the time.
I remember it was 2014, right around this time. It was new resolution for New Year, and I started watching videos of a friend of mine on Facebook. He was lifting some weights, and in a very strange way, bars. He was lifting them up and throwing them down, and it was kind of interesting because it kind of like was reminding me of weightlifting. I didn't know much about weightlifting, but I was like, what the heck these guys doing? So I hit him up. I said, bro, what is this thing that you're doing?
Just grab that mic and bring it with you. This is our first podcast with this. Just grab that bitch and bring it with you when you're talking. So we got that nice, deep, rich Persian voice. All right. Okay, so you're seeing some bars go up and down. You're like, what the fuck is this? Continue.
Kettlebells in the mix and jumping on the boxes. I'm like, what the heck is going on? What is this? So I hit him up and say on Facebook, I was like, what are you doing? What is this? He says it's CrossFit. I go, CrossFit, eh? I go, yeah. He goes, dude, you should check it out. So I ignored it for a while. A month and a half goes by.
Mic on. This is my first round. Some of you were like, why does it sound like Coach Sam's like fading into the distance on me?
My God.
It's because Coach Sam is learning the art of being able to keep your face attached to the microphone. Which, by the way, if you had to have a microphone attached to you during Warrior Week, do you think this would work?
This would not work.
This would
not work.
We've lost many microphones in the ocean with you. Okay, so you get turned on to CrossFit, but you think CrossFit's bullshit. You're not interested in CrossFit.
I don't know what it means. So a month later, I find myself, going into a CrossFit box, and I remember my first day in a CrossFit box. I get introduced to the concepts of throwing weights down, and just like I'm like, hey, this is really fun. Inside of that game, I started like learning more about CrossFit, and I started being more interested about CrossFit. So I started demonstrate and showcase my interest on Facebook about CrossFit, and I run into this guy with a green hat.
That was a fucking great. Let's be honest. That green hat was incredible.
The man in the green hat. And so I run to this guy with the green hat that is doing daily WODs. He's doing daily workouts, but he's doing it differently. Like, it's not a video about the workout. It's about him finishing the workout and coming out, and there's a conversation about life. And so I'm watching this guy and listening to this guy, and everything makes sense about what he's saying. I'm like, okay, I start following you, Garrett. I start looking forward towards the video. And
you found this verse on Facebook, right?
On Facebook, man.
Okay.
And because of CrossFit, right? That's how our world crossed.
Our worlds crossed because of CrossFit.
You like that? You like that?
I like that. That's good little
like usage of words now here in podcast, son.
Okay, continue.
So, inside of that, I remember watching this and asking myself, why am I watching this? And it was purely the credibility of you doing the work, which I just found out about how hard it is.
Right.
So I was exposed to daily watts.
Right.
And it's hard.
CrossFit's hard shit, yeah.
And I see this guy like smashing the workouts, not necessarily being the best guy, but like really putting the fucking effort into it, and then tying that effort into efforts in life, in marriage, in relationships, in business. And that made sense to me, man.
A lot of you may have never actually known that part of my video marketing of Wake Up Warrior online first, back when it was just me, we didn't have all the fancy fucking movies, etc. Just had a cell phone, and then me sitting on that cell phone and coming out of CrossFit workouts, and all I would do was I would make the workout relevant to body being balanced in business. That's what very similar to what I do on the Warrior on Fire podcast. A lot of you be listening here who also listen to that show with me, and that's how it started out. I think the Warrior on Fire podcast was me kind of sharing my daily experience with CrossFit, but this connects with Sam like it did with hundreds of individuals, but Sam was a little bit different. So you get connected with the man in the green hat. We'll post some pictures on the actual blog here at warriorweeknow.com. Where you can get all of the show notes and tips and tricks here for the show. I'll put that over there with the green hat for this episode so they can see what you're talking about. But nonetheless, it moves beyond the green hat, and you start down a journey. So what happens next?
So I started following you and started looking forward for the videos daily. And one day, there is a different video of you.
Okay.
And we can't find that video, by the way. That's the video of you, like the first commercial Warrior Week conversation that was shot on the beach. We looked everywhere. We can't fucking find that video. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, there is a 5-minute video of you. And there's an invitation of this journey, this experience called Warrior Week, and limited spots for 8.
8 people, yeah.
And I remember just watching that video, and it was just 5 minutes. It wasn't some of this great stuff that we have now. It's just you talking on the beach.
Yeah, I shot that with my cell phone, like holding my cell phone, like I was holding it like this. Like I was holding it out here like this, shooting my cell phone. And then I actually edited that video from my iMovie on my cell phone at the beach in Laguna Beach, across from the Warrior HQ where you would sit down on the blue couch. And I deployed it. It was the very, very first time that we had ever gone with a commercial Warrior Week. And what I mean by that is that somebody could begin their experience with Warrior Week as their entry point. Prior to that, a man would invest anywhere between $25,000 to $50,000 to come into a one-on-one or a small group experience with me over, 3 months, 6 months to a year. And I had gotten to this point of frustration where I felt like I couldn't serve as many people. There wasn't as many guys, and the demand was rising. So I break out the cell phone that day, and I shoot this video. And lo and behold, wouldn't the universe provide? And God opens up the windows inside of it, because the very first man that I interview after deploying this video, which is inviting 8 men to come into Warrior Week for the very first time, is Coach Sam Falsafi. So you see this invitation to come play, and talk us through you going through the application process.
So I see the invitation. I hit you up on Facebook, and I got an immediate response from you saying, hey, bro, I need you to do the following, which is just fill up the application to see if you're a fit for this experience. So I went and I applied very honestly to the questions that were asked. And you and I went on a conversation. I remember specifically asking you, hey, man, I'm local. I want to come see you. And you're like, listen, my time is limited. And I begged and I begged, and I don't know what the fuck that I did, but we ended up just meeting in people.
We did. In person. I mean, it was the first time that I'd ever done an interview like that. I think it was the first time that I had somebody local, too, who was, like, right here, who had even asked me, everybody else, live in Texas or New York. You're not exactly going to drive down and be like, hey, I'd love to come to your office for an interview. I'm like, well, if you want to get on a plane and fly. Although, interesting story, we did have somebody fly who was a little crazy from the other side of the world to Laguna for an interview, even though we'd already rejected him from Worry Week a couple times because we were pretty certain he was insane. Not that we're not insane, but, it is what it is. So you come into the interview, and talk about why why though? Like that's the piece I want to see here is why. Because there's a lot of you going to be listening to this podcast maybe for the first time, or maybe you've been following the Warrior Movement in a lot of different areas. You've been following the podcast, Warrior on Fire. You've been watching or following the podcast Date Your Wife. And you ended up here over inside of our network with the Warrior Week podcast. And you're starting to fall in love with the message and the ideas here. And you're sitting here and you're like, okay, well, what is it that's compelling you to move from just a voyeurist inside of the Warrior Week experience, which there are thousands of voyeurists inside this game that watch from the outside, but there are men every month for the past 4 years, and this year will be no different, that will step across the game of simply watching from the outside, and they step into a decision to move forward into the interview process to be accepted into Warrior Week. With 500-600 applications a month, we cannot accept everyone into these events. It's a very selective process, and very few make it through. But the ones that do make it through, which Coach Sam was one of them, life changes forever. So talk to me about a little bit of what was going on in your life. What was going on with you and again? What was going on with the business side of things? Like, what were the conditions that brought you to an actual desire, like men who will be listening to this podcast with you, a desire to go from, I'm watching the Green Hat videos, and now I'm saying, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not just going to watch anymore. Like, I need to get involved. I need to move forward. Talk a little bit about what was going on in your world that made that, how that make sense.
So if I look back right now, right, and if I, looking back right now, I know exactly why.
Okay.
But if I go back 4 years back, I would tell you that other than just being pulled, I didn't have fucking clarity why.
Got it.
Like, it was a magnetic pull. I don't know what the fuck it was. Today, I know exactly what it is. Like, I will describe it to you. But then, it was simply a magnetic pull. I don't know what the fuck and how to describe it for you. But if I become the man that I was 4 years ago, if I put myself in that skin, like, life was good. Life was good. And the definition of good was exactly what it was. Good. And then now, if I look at it, all I can tell you in the simplest way is good is equal shit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So this good principle, this is one of the type of men who will be drawn to this message. You're men that sit in a game where life is good. And we're going to hear what good looked like for Coach Sam. Now, the reality is Coach Sam's life here 4 years later has gone through the gauntlet. And good is like ridiculous compared to the greatness of his current experience. And this is what's so funny is that many of you listening to this, you're going to be men that are really good men. You're in good situations. Things are good, at least according to you. And that's only because you don't have a taste for what the fuck greatness actually feels like. And you made a pit stop on the way to greatness and stopped at good and then hung out. But Coach Sam decided that good was not good enough. And there was a pull that comes forward. And for some of you, this is not going to make sense. You're not going to be sitting there and there's going to be any logical sense of the game that's going to say, I should fucking go to Warrior Week. Like, before we continue with this, Sam, like, how many men do you think come of the men? And we're going to talk about the pit and some of the men in deep, serious, like, they're very aware things are fucking in pain right now and they need to change. But of the men that come, 12 men in Warrior Week or in our 250-man Warrior Weeks, we've got a percentage. What percentage do you think are coming who are in good but are just sick and tired of good?
50%.
50%.
50%.
Shit, I wouldn't even have put it that high, but you're the one that's been doing. I mean, literally, I'm out of the game with Warrior Week these days, at least at the level that I was. I show up and I'm there a couple times throughout the event, but this is run by you and the teams now. 50%.
And here's why.
Okay.
Like 50% of the people are aware of the pain, so they actually can feel it now.
Right.
The pain, they can fucking feel it now. There is 50% that are numb to it. The pain is there, but they just find a way to numb it out. And that was me. Me, I was part of that fucking 50%. That's why life was good.
Right.
Because there was no sense of awareness of the pain itself. It existed somewhere, but it's just so far that you think that it doesn't fucking exist.
Right. So this pain that you were in, that you didn't even know existed, inside of that then, what I'm hearing you say is that there was an actual sense in you of something. I mean, we call it the voice here, that there's a voice. And some of you may be listening to this show and you're sitting here or you're watching, and there's going to be moments during these episodes with Coach Sam. And it might be the first show. And it might be 4 shows from now. You're going to be sitting there and you're going to be feeling something that's going to literally awaken a truth inside of you that you don't fucking understand. And it's going to pull you. And this is what happened with Coach Sam, because again, being in good is an interesting dilemma. I was in good, and it demanded that my whole world burn to the fucking ground, which is what 2008, 9, and 10 were. Like, I couldn't even feel inside of good the desire to search for greatness, so the universe just said, fuck you, and burned my whole world to the ground. I was in deep fucking pain when I started searching, and I was very aware of it. But for now, we're going to talk about those that don't even know they're in pain. They just know that they're feeling something calling him forward. So continue with this process down to the old blue couches with me.
So Warrior Week has like the experience of Warrior Week, whether it's conversations like the one we're having now, or inside of somebody watching the videos of the podcast, or talking to somebody else that has already been to Warrior Week. Warrior Week has a process of creating shifts. And shifts happen inside of conversations or experiences. My particular shift happened inside of a conversation with you. Sitting on the blue couch, I remember I asked you, like, we talked about family and we talked about sex and we talked about everything, right? But the particular shift that I can recall was me asking you a question. And like, the credit is not to you because you were some fucking guru and you helped me out because you're so smart. The credit is to Warrior Week itself, the process, because Warrior Week is an entity by itself.
Yes.
It's a living organism. It has its own rules that filters the bullshitters. It has its own process. It has its own timing. That's why, listening to this, you may feel it eventually, or you may feel it fucking now. But it has its own existence. And coming back particularly to that conversation, the first shift inside of me towards going to the next steps, and I didn't know what the fuck the next step was, but I can recall the shift, was me turning around and asking you one fucking question.
Okay.
And that was, Garrett, inside of my business, I don't speak English as my first language. And, I don't really write well English. And this really, really, fucks with me, man. And it fucks with my confidence. It's what fucks with my certainty. Like, I'm my own business owners, and I meet executives and CEOs. And this is always in the back of my mind as a limitation that I'm not good enough to be inside of this circle. And I remember you simply reframing the conversation, saying, hey, everything about you, your accent, everything about you, the way you speak, your vocabulary, your energy, it's all you, man. It's all you. It's what makes you you. Like, you're not to erase that. Oh, yeah, there's rooms for you to become better, but you have to accept yourself. And I'm like, okay, now that give me tons of fucking certainty and courage. It's not hope. It didn't give me fucking hope.
Right.
It give me something that I can't even describe what it is. Like, I can't quantify fucking certainty. It's a feeling. It sits in your heart and it says, okay, I found something. I found something that is talking to my heart. Let's walk. Let's go towards the next step. I finally found something that makes me move. Rather than just nod my head and say, yeah, this concept makes sense. Yes, life is great. Yes, I can do. No, it was actually a feeling that made me move.
I want you to see something inside of this for yourself as you're listening or watching this. There's a reframe inside of the game. What a reframe simply is there's a direction in which you see the world. We call this a frame. As a man, you see the world a certain way. You know, you may have actually believed that making money was enough, and that was it. And you're like, hey, I fucking tapped out, man. I got all my shit covered. All my T's are crossed, my I's are dotted. I nailed this fucking bitch against the wall. I'm totally good to go. I have done my job as a man. Okay, and then you were introduced this entire way of the warrior's way, and you started to see that there was this whole other world available to you in the habit of lifestyle across all 4 domains that you were actually expected physically through your body, spiritually through being, in your relationships and marriage with kids and balance, and in your business to be able to nail all 4 of these at the same time. So when we change that frame for you, that's called a reframe, which is you now have a new opportunity to have a new conversation about your life and to create new possibilities inside of that frame driven by this reframe. And there is no one in the game, no one inside the game and the business and the drive and the movement and the training systems of Wake Up Warrior who has mastered the skill of reframe at a higher level than Coach Sam Falsafi. Like the man sitting right here next to me. And part of that is because of his ruthless submission to the process of the voice. And this was happening back then. And this reframe that you're looking through, many of you are going to be sitting here and you're going to be in this conversation, well, why the fuck do I need Warrior Week? Well, listen, at the end of the day, you don't need anything. You don't need shit. If your life works the way it is, and be entertained and listen to the show. Hear some stories every week about men who are going through their shit and figuring things out, and just be with it from there. But if you're in a place in which you know the current frame through which you see the life that you're in is not going to get you what you want. It's going to demand that you do something different. And in this case with Sam Falsafi, and we're going to call him Sam Falsafi back then because that's what Sam was. Sam was Sam Falsafi, the man, not Sam Falsafi, the lead trainer of Wake Up Warrior, not Sam Falsafi, the man who has led thousands and thousands of men into the darkest of the pit, and inside of that night taught them to turn on the fucking light. Not only the man inside of that, but the most cherished and honored man from the tip of the spear inside of Warrior Week. In all sales, interviews, experiences, conversation, and training, there has not been a man at the highest level inside of this game called Wake Up Warrior that has not trained directly under the tutelage and the reframing power of the man that you're hearing about that 4 years ago rolled in and sat down on my couch, and the ultimate reframe began for him, which is one that will likely begin for you also as you listen to the voice inside of these conversations of Parables from the Pit here on the Warrior Week podcast, which is the reframe of who you are right now is the version of you that you have built till now. But there is a new version of you, and inside that new version of you is a reframe to accept all of you. And Coach Sam, this is what I'm hearing you say is this reframing was beginning for you sitting on that couch with that one statement. Continue with sharing like what started opening up for you when, I mean, the simple phraseology. And I was actually making the comparison because I had a speaking coach back in the day, a guy by the name of Roberto Monaco, a Brazilian guy who had a deep, rich Brazilian accent like your deep, rich Persian accent. And he said different words in English different, and he pronunciated them different. And he said the same thing. He's like, listen, man, this has been one of my greatest gifts. And here I was passing that gift from Roberto to you. But what starts opening up from you at that point? And what did you start to feel about what was possible for your life just sitting in that moment of like, holy shit, maybe there is things to change, but maybe what really has to change is I just have to accept all of myself.
The simplest way that I can describe just that particular experience was seeing the possibility that I can access power through the number of languages that I speak and I write. So I speak Persian, I speak French, French-Canadian that is. I'm proud of being French-Canadian, not just French, but French-Canadian from Quebec, Canada. So I speak Persian, French-Canadian, as well as English. And I write all 3 languages. So when I saw the possibility of accessing power through each of those languages, and I give you an example what power means, right? I can think in Persian, and I can switch and think in English, and I can switch and think in fucking French. And I would see 3 different fucking outcomes because there are 3 different fucking cultures attached to that way of thinking, period.
Shit. I never even know this. I didn't even know this until right now. I didn't realize that A, you had the skill to do this, and B, I didn't realize how this probably is why you've grown so quickly. Because literally you have, I mean, I speak Spanish, but I don't think through Latin culture, right? I don't solve problems from Latin perspective. I solve problems from white guy perspective, right? I solve it from an English-speaking perspective. I never even considered that was probably one of your greatest gifts was the ability to reframe through 3 different cultures.
Yeah.
Shit.
And the shift was simply somebody pushing me and say, have you considered looking at that possibility? And that was you.
Right.
And when I started looking at that possibility, I'm just giving you an example. And when I started exploring my communication and my desires to communicate and write through that, then I started seeing that, yes, I can access power. So inside of this, my voice is shutting down.
So good. This is what happens when you get sick over the holidays, and here we are shooting the show. Always tough when a trainer's voices start to go down. I've been there a billion times. The only reason I still have a voice is because Coach Sam Falsafi showed up. If Coach Sam had not shown up, I'm pretty certain at this point I'd be a mute. I'd be unable to speak. My throat would be completely jacked from so many years and years and years of yelling. Okay, so continue.
So the whole point of this is when we talk about power, this concept of power is actually found nowhere but inside of our own experiences, what we hold up to now. That's it. You're not going to find power outside of your experiences. And if you do, it's fucking a false lift. It's a distraction. It's a fucking lie.
So this power is the core of everything that a man searches for at Warrior. Like, this is the inaugural game. Like, this is what Coach Sam was coming for. This is what you're going to come for. This is what men have come for now for 5 years, have come to this place searching for. They don't come knocking for money. They don't come knocking for sex. They don't come knocking for all those things. Although all the money, the sex, the power, all of that production side of the game is the result of accessing more power. At the end of the day, a man comes to the gateway of Warrior Week searching for power. And that's no different than the power that Coach Sam was searching for. But Coach Sam came in searching for power. This is what he was looking for. It's what he was hunting for. It's what he was desiring, was to find power. Now I'm gonna speed this story up a bit. We're gonna speed it up 2 years from that point. So 2 years down the road, after you go to your first Warrior Week with me, you find yourself at the core of Wake Up Warrior. And you are running as my wingman in this. You're my co-trainer. You haven't taken over the game, but you're beginning to witness on a daily basis what's happening. But there's something that changes inside of you. You begin to fall in love with the process of building a man. Like, I watch it happen. I watch it happen inside of Sam. Like, it's, you know, he would predict certain things for me. One of the things he predicted for me after he came in, it was after he came to Warrior Week, it was about 9 months later. Sam ended up coming in full-time into the organization with me. And he told me, he said, I'm going to take over all sales. He said, there's going to come a point here in the next year, you will not interview anyone else because you need to be working out other parts in the business. I need to be the gatekeeper. I am the shepherd. I am the sheepdog. I am going to protect the gates of this game. And I was like, I appreciate your confidence there, Persian. Thank you very much. And I kind of thought you might be smoking a little bit of marijuana. I was like, there's no fucking way. I will never let go. It's not possible. You know, and then there was this, as this progressed, that exact thing happened. And Coach Sam took over all interviews and became one of the most lethal interviewers in the game. And I want to pause on this for a second because he learned it under the same system in which I taught him, but then took it to a whole nother place. And you heard him talking about these breakthroughs. Now, I want you to recognize the breakthroughs that he was talking about and the distinctions that he was having. They were not even found, gentlemen, in Warrior Week yet. Like, we haven't even talked about any of the distinctions or shifts that happened inside the actual pit of Warrior Week. We're talking about the interview And change was already beginning. So I wanna take a little pit stop here for a second, Coach Sam.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about why. I mean, you've done probably at this point, you think it's over 1,000?
Oh, definitely.
1,000 interviews. I mean, there were weeks where I watched, when we had Black Box launch and a couple of these other ones. I mean, there was like 100 to 120 interviews in 1 week. Talk about why does, oh, I love it. My cell phone's on. Talk to me about why the interview process is an interview process and why it can be, even if a man is not accepted into Warrior Week at the time, why is that Warrior Week interview such a profound thing? Because we've received hundreds of emails over the last couple of years from men who were interviewed for Warrior Week who didn't get accepted into Warrior Week, or for whatever reason at the time couldn't afford it, or it just wasn't a fit at that time, and they sent responses to us talking about how their lives had changed so radically from having been involved with just the interview with you. Talk about the interview process and why it's such a powerful thing.
Like I said, it's Warrior Week that creates the structure and the invitations. I mean, this is not fucking voodoo. This is what it is. It's not what I decide. It's not what Garrett decided. It's not it's not a filtering process. When a man reaches out and wants to come to Warrior Week, there's something that pulls him. The same something that I talked to you that pulled me. The same magnetic force. There's something that says you must be here. And then there are a few key questions to figure out if must means now or eventually down the line. But if a man is a must now, Garrett, if a man is a must now, he earns the right to come in and have the conversation and prove why is it a must now?
Right.
Like, what's the cost of waiting? What's the cost of not doing it now? What's the cost of not making dramatical changes right now? What's the cost of not fucking shifting? What is the cost? When a man is aware of that cost, or at least think that he is, then he shows up with a different energy inside of the interview of Warrior Week.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my duty, our duty, to serve that man inside of that 1 hour conversation, to give him the clarity and allow him to make the decision by the end. Because once a man has fucking clarity, he has fucking power. Like I said, it's our goal is to simply create the environment for him within that hour to recognize the cost and be very clear that if he doesn't make any changes now, that the consequences are there, and this is the list of the consequences he's going to fucking face. And when it's often his kids and the wife that are at stake,
right,
it becomes very clear what the decision is. And whether it's X amount of dollars to join, none of that conversation matters. The date don't matter, because most guys coming inside of this game are busy entrepreneurs. Their schedule is full.
Right.
But calendar doesn't fucking matter. Tuition doesn't matter once a man gets that clarity. But that clarity must be sought by that man inside of that interview. It is not given to that man. The conditions are favorite for that guy to seek it and says, I see it clearly. Because if he doesn't see it and if I push it on him, then it's not clarity. It's what I desire.
Some people have thought that this whole interview thing is a fucking farce, right? We've had individuals call us out. I mean, we had Warrior Week had a major publication here back in the spring of 2017 by the New York Post, and it brought a huge amount of desire for production companies in LA to do documentaries on Warrior Week. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of graduates from the very intense crucible. And then we've had thousands and thousands of men begin to live the way inspired by the men that they watched come to Warrior Week, right? There's been this cascade effect of it. But inside of it, people would say, well, is this interview thing real? And we're like, yes. Yes, it's real, because we're not interested in results at Warrior with people who are half interested in results for themselves. I was sitting in an event years ago, and a man by the name of Keith Cunningham was speaking at an event. I was speaking at the same event, and he got up on stage, and at the very, very end, he said a statement that I'll remember. I was sitting on the front row as a speaker. I was up in a couple hours, And it burned into my mind. And he said, listen, I don't have to pitch you on shit, because if I have to pitch you hard, this means that I care more about your future than you do. And that is a formula for failure. So if you know it's your time, you know what to do. For the rest of you, thank you so much for being here. And he got off stage. And I remember sitting there and just going, shit. This is there's so much truth in that. And that's what I built the Warrior Experience on. I built it driven by this idea that we as an organization would not become the sales company, that we are an interview organization with profound marketing that allow men like you the opportunity to come into a very safe and a very secure environment to have a conversation that the worst case scenario changes the trajectory of your life forever just being in the fucking interview. And in the best case scenario, we find out that it's a match for you to step into the crucible that, trust me, you think you know about. You think you know only based upon what we've let you see online and what you've got to hear. But what you're going to hear inside of this particular podcast is every week we're not going to come in with the plan on how to fix your life. We're not going to share that here. What you're going to get here is you're going to get stories. You're going to get parables. You're going to get teachings through the lives, not of myself or Coach Sam. We're going to teach it as if we were the witnesses to true revolution and liberation inside of a man. And we're going to give you 4 parables every single week. 4 parables from the pit. Coach Sam, talk to me about this idea of parables from the pit. I mean, this became kind of the name that we wanted to start here with the show. And back in the day, I mean, you didn't have, did you have like a shitload of videos to go watch to give you evidence that Warrior Week would work?
Nothing.
Was there a book that you could read?
Nothing.
Was there a fucking video series that you could dive into?
Nothing.
Was there were there blog posts?
Nothing.
Was there apps and software?
Nothing.
There was there was fucking nothing. This is why men like Coach Sam and a handful of other men who came in the original years with us back in 2012, 13, and 14, they lived this game so passionately, because back then there was no fucking podcast. There was nothing. There was nothing to affirm. There was no brand. There was no shuttles. There weren't large events with thousands of men. This shit didn't exist. There wasn't sold out event after sold out event. There wasn't training environments happening all over. There weren't 100 trainers inside the game all over the globe taking the message wide and far. None of this shit existed. There were originals, and Coach Sam was one of them, brought into the mix. But we're going to tell you stories of men, and this is going to be story time with Coach Sam, about men and their journey to the pit and back. Explain what this actually means, Sam, because if I'm tuning into this show and I'm coming in to hear you, talk to me about what this actually means to actually plug into these 2 ideas. One, parables, why stories, and then the second one, what is this all about, this pit conversation? Because they've heard us say this a couple times. We haven't actually defined what this is.
So, just going back to what you were saying, during the time when there was nothing, right? And then there is this way of living. And then there is the courage to trust this way of living. Okay, this is easily said, like a couple of words. But what I want you to understand that is when a man is making a decision to live this way, when you want to live this way, is to let go of the way you were living most of your life. 37 years of living under the identity that I had to be let go in order for me to start living this new way. No podcast, no software, no other people, no thousands of men, no fucking warrior book, nothing. So I want you to feel this, man. This is my fucking life I'm talking about. This is my fucking life. This is my wife and my kids. This is who I am as a businessman, as the guy that studied in software engineering and then petroleum engineering and all kind of shit that I've done in my life. All that had to be let go. 15 years in oil and gas, all my contacts, the world that I knew as my world, as my identity, I had to let that go. Based on something that's pulling me. Based on, I can't even fucking describe what's pulling me. I'm letting go something based on something that's pulling me. The only thing that I can look right now is if I look back, it's just like What Warrior Week does is, motherfucker, Warrior Week creates the biology and the thoughts around your heart. It connects your mind with your heart, and it gives you courage to make some fucking decisions. Because it takes a hell of a lot to say, I'm going this way. I don't know what this way is, but I'm going this way because the way that I've been going so far has brought me up to this point. I'm not saying it was a shitty way, but I'm saying I'm being pulled to go this way. But in order for me to go this way, that means I gotta shift. I will no longer be doing the things I was doing on this path. I will no longer be with the people that I was. I will no longer be identified as a man that I was. It's a pure letting go. In order for a man to do that, in order for a man to find the courage to fucking do that, there are stories between the man that he is today and the man that he desires to become. There are layers and layers of stories. Some he's aware of. Others are packed and pushed so deep into this place that we call the pit. Into this dark place that we call the pit, that a man doesn't like to visit. And all it is just a storage room full of stories. Kind of like this setup here. Storage room here. You walk in, shelf blue, shelf yellow, shelf red, and there are a bunch of stories in there. We don't like to go in that fucking room because there are painful stories there. There are stories that we want to forget. There are realities and facts that have never taken place, but yet they've taken the form of stories and they're robbing power from us daily. To have the courage to knock at the door and walk into that room and just face the stories is where we talk about the pit, Garrett. And the parables talk with himself. There are thousands of fucking stories in that pit. Our pit. Our family's pit.
The pit is a place of profound incarceration. We're not talking about a man actually finding himself locked up in prison with handcuffs on, although it could be. What we're discussing is a man finding himself in one of two places. One, an unworkable life. An unworkable fucking life. A scenario and a situation inside of life that is unfucking workable. My life was unworkable. I had no answers to life. I had no answers to repair. I had no answers to resurrection. I had no answers to rebuilding my life. Nothing. I had no fucking answers. And what I did have were a series of puzzle pieces that were all over the fucking place. But the worst part is that even if I had known what to do, I didn't have the fucking balls to pull it off. I didn't have the courage to pull it off. And Warrior Week was built as an experience. It was built as a crucible. It was built as a rite of passage for a man to be able to step from the place of who he is today and to usher in a new definition of what it is to be the man. To be the man in his marriage, to be the man with his children, to be the man in his business, to actually step up to the plate as a modern fucking man, the way that we define it here at Warrior Week. Which is a man in the have it all lifestyle, a man who lives by the belief system of the warrior's way, a man who chooses to step out from the shadows and stand into the light as a beacon of possibility of what it is to have it all, but also what it is to live from a place of power, to live from a place of not sedation and incarceration, but from a place of liberation. But in order to go there, in order to come to that place, in order to put your life in a place that is unfucking recognizable, which is what we've seen happen here not once, not twice. It's not only something evidenced in my life. It's not something only evidenced in the life of Coach Sam. This is something evidenced in the lives of literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, almost 1,000 graduates of the Warrior Week Crucible. Businessmen whose lives have moved to a place of power and possibility that are difficult for many to describe, but this show is going to tell their stories. This show is going to paint for you the parables taught inside of stories, starting inside of the fucking night, starting inside of the place where men begin the fight, starting inside the place that most have no courage to go. We're going to start in the place and have conversations that are fucking taboo. We're going to talk about pain that people don't want to talk about. We're going to talk about the truth behind the facade and truth behind the fake smiles and the truth behind the perfect Instagram pictures and the truth behind the supposed couple that has it all figured out. And we're going to dive deep into a place of the pain. And we're going to start with the pain inside of a man's pit, which is his own self-created prison driven by his stories. Warrior Week works for a reason. Coach Sam, how describe for me why? What this is a question the New York Post asked us. First they asked me if I was a cult leader. Not true. The second thing, that would mean that I'd have to have everybody worship me, and I don't even run Warrior Weeks fully myself anymore. It's Coach Sam with our entire team and his trainers that run Warrior Week, and they run it fucking better than I did when I was there running it by myself. There is a reason that this crucible works. And particularly in what occurs over the first 2 days and in the preparation phase up to Warrior Week, which is 30 days before that. But talk about why. Why is an event required to cause this kind of liberation that we're talking about from the pit?
Garrett, you mentioned that we would never want the results for a man if they don't want it for themselves. Inside of the Warrior Week experience, we will fucking demand the results that we've gained for a man that steps to come in. Like, we demand the results, the same results that we've got or better for that man. So there's a higher standard for a man coming in inside of this architected game. Yes, it's a fucking game, but it's designed and architected around life. It's gamified, so you play it, but it's your life. It is taking your perspective today and it's shattering all your perspective and giving you an opportunity for you to see new light. It is also a place where there is an invitation for you to visit the dark, a place that most men will avoid based on their ego, based on the fact that they're just scared, based on the fact that they don't have to. Like, my life is working. I don't really have to deal with all the fucking guilt and shame that I've carried most of my life. I mean, as far as I know, I already talked to my fucking therapist, and that's fixed. I'm good. Inside of Warrior Week, a man has no fucking room to hide. There is no room for anyone to hide. The way this experience is architected, it is designed to push a man to face himself in front of a mirror. And for the first time in his life, just like I was, just like 1,000 and plus graduates of Warrior Week have been, see themselves in the mirror, the man that they are today, in their body, in their relationship with their wife and the kids, as a husband, as a father, in their connection with God and their spirituality, and as well as in their ability to produce in their business, their line of work, or whatever they're doing. That exposure, it is one that is unavoidable. Once they see themselves clearly exactly where they are, they begin to understand the clarity that is required for them to move to the next step. And that comes in the second chapter of Warrior, which is injecting certainty and confidence into the same man so he can move towards what he has now identified as what he wants. Not what the fucking society wants for him, not what others want for him, not what he's supposed to do, not some fucking checklist that he inherited from his dad, but basically what he wants. That clarity and that certainty is obtained at Warrior Week. And there's also a gift. There's a gift here at Warrior Week for each man. This gift is obtained on the second day on the mountains. This gift is not given to anyone. We do not know what the fuck this gift is, but a man comes in here seeking it. And he must travel to this gift in order to get it. I don't know what the fuck it is. Garrett doesn't know what it is. But once a man downloads this gift, he is now a different man. That day itself. The identity of a character of a man morphs into this gift so that when he goes back home, he doesn't have to follow certain checklists to be the person. There's a new identity of him going back.
This shift itself that Coach Sam was talking about, this gift that we speak of, is a gift that comes from God. It's a gift that comes from the voice. It's a gift that comes into your heart. And inside of that place allows a man to access power and production in a way that he's never been able to access it before. There are some who will say, even the way that we discuss about this, it's even overwhelming, it's overbearing, you're too loud, you're too this, you shouldn't be talking about it this way, it shouldn't be happening this way. We have critics that say this all the time, and then I got other people who will say, oh, you're talking to guys who are overbearing, that will come in and say, hey, these guys sound like a bunch of fucking pussies, talking about loving yourself, talking about the gift from God, and these are our guys who are like, oh, like hardcore, and like, hey, listen, motherfuckers, we'll run with you to that fucking aspect, and we'll run with you all the way to the other side of it too. See, inside of Warrior Week, a man is given an opportunity to experience for the first time the fullness and wholeness of who he is. From who he is physically, to who he is spiritually, to who he is in relationship with his wife and his queen, to who he is in relationship with his children as a leader, to who he is as a businessman and his bank accounts. An interwoven place, a sacred place where a man can be honest, where he can stop fucking lying for the first time in his entire life. Many of you listening to this have been lying for so fucking long about where you've been, about where you are, and about where you want to go, that there is no safe place in your world to actually tell the truth. And although the phrase, "the truth will set you free," is a phrase that you may hear readily, the truth is it's not going to be yours for the taking. Because the environment that you are in is surrounded with men and women who do not support the wholeness and fullness of who you are. Because how could they? How could they? Because you don't even give yourself fucking permission to be all of who you are. You know how many years I spent suffering inside of my own silence? Suffering inside, thinking that the answer was that I needed to run and hide, that the answer was I was broken and wrong, when the truth was the greatest gift that I had was just to fucking be all of me. But I was scared to death of trying to be that guy. I was scared to death of me. And I get it. I would have been the guy years ago, a decade ago, but to listen to this and been like, fucking pussies. Fucking pussies. Listen to these fucking pussies talking like this. I get it. I'm like, look at that fucking cocksucker. Fuck him. Fuck this. Fuck Warrior. Fucking pussies. I get it. Now put all your fuck yous to the side for a second, and I just want you to open up to one big one. You ready? Fuck you, motherfucker. And fuck the results that you don't get. And fuck you for not showing up. And fuck you for showing up and being half of the man that you were called to be. And fuck you for calling yourself a father that leads the way you do. Even if you lead from greatness, you understand that who you are now in comparison to who you could be on this accelerated path makes the man that you are today embarrassing. Fucking embarrassing that you would ever call yourself to this place, that you would ever accept or tolerate in your life that it is okay that I show up as a husband the way I am, that it is okay that I show up as a father the way I am, that it is okay that I show up as a businessman and lead in my businesses the way I am, that it is okay that I show up in my relationship with God the way that I do. There's one simple statement, and I'm going to have Coach Sam bring us to a conclusion here on this first episode. One statement that really rocked me to the core. I don't even know who told me. I don't even know who said it. I'm certain there are quite a few people who said it down this direction, so we will just quote it as fucking anonymous, and even in the quote, I don't even remember the whole quote. I'm going to paraphrase it. That the greatest fear for a man is to die knowing he never took a stand. And inside of that death, to meet the man that he could have become. I look back at who I was before this. I look back at the men who have graduated from this experience called Warrior Week, who have been guided to the crucible for the last 2 years by lead trainer coach Sam Falsafi and the team that he has put together around him to support in this process and to make sure and assure that the results are guaranteed every time. I look back to who I was. I look back to who they are, and it is literally sickening. It brings nausea, physical nausea, and soul-wrenching pain to consider what my life would have looked like had I continued to play the way I was. The man you are today is costing you millions. The man you are today is costing you love and connection with your wife and children at levels you could not fathom. The man you are today is isolated from the revelations that God and the voice have for you. But the man that you could become on the other side of an evolution in a crucible like Warrior Week would allow you to stop hiding. Not from being afraid of who you were to become, but to stop hiding from the greatness that you know is actually inside you. Coach Sam, let's bring this initial show to a close here. And my question for you is, what can a man expect from you? You know, some weeks I'm going to be here on the show with you. Some weeks you're going to be solo. Some weeks you're going to have guys who have flown in from around the United States and sometimes international to be here as guests with you. Sometimes you'll be playing video clips and audio clips of men who have graduated from one of your events. What can they expect from you every single week as a listener or as a watcher here? If you're viewing this show on video, seeing it here in studio, or whether or not you're listening to the audio, what can they expect from you as a trainer, as a host here inside of this experience called the Warrior Week podcast?
You can expect here to hear the truth. Ugly, beautiful, whatever version of it, we're going to tell it. We have over 300 stories to share with you guys, at least for this quarter. Stories of men. These are not concepts or principles that we're teaching. We're not teaching shit. We're simply exposing the stories. And if I tell you that among all the men, among all the Warrior Weeks and all the stories that we gathered, there is one common pain that brings everyone into this experience. And that is the pain of being alone. And what I mean by being alone is not that you are socially alone, but you as a man, even you listening right now, are operating alone. All your decisions are based on your assumptions and justification. And most of you, especially the ones that are rejecting this message to some extent, are operating on the wavelength of what you already know, which is the past. And the future is in the horizon. The future relies in your heart. The future relies in this permission that you give yourself to knock at the door. And the first door you have to knock in is the pit. And there's a guided path for you to go and knock at the pit. Because if you already had the fucking balls of knocking in your own pit, you would have done it. Most men don't want to knock at that door. So inside of this, what I can share with you is the following. Is that we will create the structure, the guidance, and the architectic experience to bring you and have you knock at your pit. Knock the door, get inside, see your stories. Empower yourself with the stories that you have not given too much credit. And delete the stories that are robbing away power from you. And become this person that you choose and you actually conceptualize. And you create. It's all your work. No one's going to do the fucking work for you. All your work. And what I can tell you, it's simply, and what I can share with you is simply from my experience. After all this 4 years of inside of this game, living it myself, and then going and through the last 2 years, and then just running multiple Warrior Weeks and teaching this, the one thing that I've gained that I would pay anything all over to gain, and this is something that I've inherited from Garrett, and most men inherit this from this process, is to look at everything that we do as a man and everything that we are, that every single action and every single thing that we do, the purpose of that, it's for our loved ones and our family. And I cannot, like, Garrett is a living example of this. Living example of this. That this whole program, this conversation, this business, this message, this movement, this broadcasting capability, the whole purpose of this was the following. I'm going to fucking simplify it for you. Love your wife and your kids. And love them and treat them the way they're supposed to be. Be a father, be a husband, period. That's what Wake Up Warrior is all about. Garrett, I'm going to have you just talk about this because this is the point, man. This is the fucking point. This is why you went through hell to create this shit. And then others followed, like myself.
The only reason I was even searching was because I wanted to find power in the one place I couldn't find power. I wanted to find connection in the one place I couldn't find connection, which was at home. I'd found it in business. I'd found it in sports and athletics. I'd found it everywhere, but I couldn't seem to put it together at home. And then when I did have moments of putting it together at home, everything else would fall apart. And Warrior Week as a crucible was built as an experience to assure the shift. That's all I wanted. I wanted to assure the shift. And so we have Warrior Week 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49 in 2018. And then we go to Warrior Week 50 and 51, which is our new models of larger group experiences. And all of this is happening for one simple reason, is a man needs an experience to find himself. And that's what Warrior Week delivers. And so every week you can count on Coach Sam showing up here with stories, with fire, with intensity, with emotion, with an acceptance inside of it, of being able to talk to you from the pit of man's experience, because every month 12 to 15 men go to the pit with Coach Sam through Warrior Week. And they've been doing this now for 2 years under his guidance. 2 years under his guidance, graduating a group every single month, and men who send me the messages from the peak, way beyond the pit, of gratitude and of appreciation for the opportunity to have even come into contact with Wake Up Warrior, but mostly for the honor to be able to spend time with Coach Sam. There is no man inside the game of Warrior who I trust more than Sam Falsafi when it comes to leading, training, coaching, and guiding. He is at the heartbeat of this organization. He is at the heartbeat of this movement. In many terms, we joke around and call him Warriors. Yeah, he is your greatest and oldest friend at Wake Up Warrior. Many of you have seen me on video, heard me in audio, but the Warrior Week game is one in which you, for the very first time, come into contact with another person here in our organization, and you begin that initial interview process with Coach Sam. If after listening to this, you know it's time for you to start heading down that path, I would encourage you to head to warriorweek.com, and warriorweek.com, where you're going to find a short documentary movie that will paint a picture of what Warrior Week is like, and you'll also find the application there. We'll also reference you over to warriorweeknow.com, where you'll find all of the show notes for this show, as well as all the rest of the shows that Coach Sam's going to bring to you, as well as the stories and parables in readable format available. We'd encourage you also to make sure that you are subscribed inside of iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher to the audio version and or video versions, as well as being part of the fan page found at Warrior Week on Facebook. Follow Coach Sam there. Follow this show. I look forward to having you here as my guest, and I am honored to put Coach Sam at the head of this game. This is his kingdom, his game, and his movement inside of the Warrior Empire, which is being able to lead men like you down the path. And Coach Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having me here on the first show, and we look forward to all the shows coming down the pipe. That's all we got for you today. We are signing off with a two-clap boom. Are you ready for a little two-clap boom? Right at the great moment. You're like, right at the great moment. And Coach Sam does not smoke. Coach Sam is coming off of an illness. All right, buddy, here we go. We'll give him a little two-clap boom on the 3P to rally this down. Here we go. Two-clap, boom. Two-clap, boom. Two-clap, boom. We'll see you next week.